Hello everyone and welcome back, Drukakalythil here with another video. If you came from a previous video where I did show you how to get from 3D model to basically model you can assemble, stuff you can assemble, then you're right here for just watching the second part where I'm going to show you how to not cut it by hand but actually letting the machine do it. And that's the topic right now. If you're an experienced papercraft and already familiar with Pepakura designer, I'm not going over to show you everything you need to set up. At least not in Pepakura designer how to make basic things because you already know it. So anyway, the things you need to do is when you unfolded it, like you would normally do, you have basically two options. Or at least it depends on your model. It should work when you go into the line style settings and check hide nearly flat folding lines. Set the threshold to between 178 or 180 degrees because we would actually not cut it by hand because a machine does the cutting for us. And then this the Silhouette Cameo 3. If you already ask what cutting machine I would recommend, get the Silhouette Cameo 3, and that tutorial also applies to just the Silhouette Cameo 3. So keep that one in mind. But that's also in the video title as well. So anyway, you want to set it to 170 degrees or 180 degrees because, like I said, a machine does the cutting for us. You basically could set it to 180 degrees because some models, if you already would know it from experience, actually form way better when you have way more fold lines. But that's not for today. So anyway, for that one, I actually go with my usual 178 degrees because that's just a nice number to have, and pretty much every model I ever assembled, and I assembled like over 50 models right now, so I have quite a bit of experience with that one already. So anyway, when you've done that and you saved your file and you're happy with it, go to export and export it as DXF files per sheet. I already done it. I'm not going to do it again because it could be that I moved something and actually messed up something, but when you do it just like this. So when you've done that, you want to download and get the software for your cutting machine. In this case, it is Silhouette Studio. When you first open up Silhouette Studio, you will probably be greeted with something like this. Maybe depends, but it should look somewhere like this, for example. So anyway, when you open it up, you get basically something like this. And also, that's version 3.8. It also works exactly the same in version 4 and newer. So just like the interface of the old Silhouette Studio way more. So keep that one in mind. So anyway, when you've done that and opened up everything and have your design page set, your design page thingamabob here, you go to settings, you go to defaults. No, not again to defaults. Sorry. You go to general, set your unit of length to millimeters or inches, whichever you prefer. I would highly recommend it. Set it the same, set it to the same unit of length you use in Pepakura designer. So in my case, it's millimeters. Then also resolution for image sent to printer. If a printer supports it, which it really should, then set it to 1200 dpi, but you also can use custom resolution. But as you can see, you can go up quite easy. But 1200 should do the trick nicely. So then you go to import options, and here you have to really make sure that in the box where it says when importing DXF that you go to as is, because if you would choose any other option, your whole time you spend with scaling your Pepakura model to fit you, it just would be, yeah, it changes the scaling, let's say it that way. Because fit to page, obviously, when you would import just a small piece, like, I don't know, like 10 by 10 centimeters, it would get blown up to basically the complete page. So you obviously don't want that one. So make sure you set it to as is. Then make sure make white lines black is checked, and also join lines into polylines. Then under advanced, that's just one thing, and that's saving to .studio 3 format. Make sure including cut data is also set. It should be set by default anyways, but sometimes it isn't, especially on my laptop it wasn't set, so just make sure. Then you hit apply. I just hit cancel because it could be that I changed something else and I don't want to mess with my settings. So anyway, when you've done that, you go up to here to design page settings, set your paper size to the paper size you have loaded in your printer. You can set it also to the same dimensions here that are set in the Silhouette Studio, into the Pepakura designer. Oh man, but it really doesn't matter anymore. So I keep that one in mind. So anyway, set it to a portrait, and in my case, I set it to rotate the view to 270 degrees. Because you're also, if you're like unfolding in portrait mode in Pepakura Designer, you need to also set the same thing in Silhouette Studio. So make sure you use the same sort of aspect ratio or the same orientation of the paper. That one, the rotate view button, does just that, as it says, it rotates your view. And anyways, that's it for this. So, also you want to set your cutting mat right. For A4 you need, or A4 and letter size, you need the 12 by 12 inches, and for A3 you need the 24 by 12 or the 12 by 24 inches cutting mat. So just make sure you set the right cutting mat. In my case, it's, like I said, the 12 by 24 inches. So then you go up to the registration marks and set that one to type 1, Cameo Portrait Curio, and leave every setting untouched. Don't need to change anything down there. Just make sure the orientation is set to default, which it already should. And as you can see, you have some lines there, a square here, and a thing down there. Also, you have an area which is crisscrossed like this. And when you're now going, no, just show it to you later on. We get to it. So, by cut mode, you want to set it to the advanced mode. And you want to set up 2 new lines. You do it by just clicking the plus button here and then setting the following options. For the bend line, which is the lines which you would normally score, which are obviously your folding lines or your bend lines, however you would call them. Just call them anyone, or just call them bend lines. So you want to set the blade depth. If you're using the Cameo 3, it comes with the automatic blade. If you have the Cameo 2, which it also should work with, then you have just a ratchet blade, and you need to basically change the depth manually. With the automatic blade, the cutting machine does it for you, which is really nice. So anyway, set your blade depth to 1, set your speed to 8 centimeters per second, or whatever it is in inches, and set your thickness to 33, so basically max it out. The thickness setting should be called pressure, I think, in Studio 4, if I can remember correctly, but I could also be completely wrong. Just make sure, whatever it is in your version, that you set it to the maximum. You can, basically not to the maximum, it really depends on your paper thickness. but for anything over 160 grams per square meter. Oh man, that's the paper thickness measurement we use in Europe. Just convert that number to your, if you're in America, just convert it to whatever. I think you use ounces per feet or something like that, if I remember correctly, but I got all that big completely wrong. I'm in Europe, so again, just convert the thickness measurement to your appropriate one. But anyway, anything from, like I said, 160 grams per square meters up, you go with thickness 33 and you should be golden. If not, if it is scoring too deep, you could also potentially reduce it to like 28 or something like that, but it should work with 33. So then you want the cut line, which as the name says, is the thing you want to cut, and that's the pieces itself. So set the speed to 6 or 5 to 7 centimeters per second, or whatever it is in inches. That is, the conversion factor should be 2.54 if I remember correctly. Oh no, 2.2, 2.54. Yeah, something around that. Just can't remember for sure. But anyway, set your blade depth to 4. Should work nicely up to 220 grams per square meters. I actually did cut it with 4, just fine. But the thicker your paper, you probably want, if you're really cutting really hard cardstock, you actually want to reduce it even down to like 4 or even 3. But 6, it should do the trick quite nicely. And also set your thickness to 33. And you are done. Then you go into your folder where you did export your DXF files. Drop that one in. Like this. Just wait a second until you see something coming up in a second. And boom. Now we have 4 different colors. So your valley folds are got red. Your mountain folds are blue. Your numbers, your edge numbers are black, really black. They have the color code 0.0.0 or 000. You don't want to cut those. So just uncheck the mark here. Also, make sure your bend lines are correctly set, or the bend lines are getting the treatment first. Then set that one to your bend line, and RGB with the color code 65, 65, 65 should be set to the cut line. And then you're almost done. Then you go in here, press Ctrl A. You go to the line style window, select this line type. Set the line thickness to 0.1 millimeters, or there are also points that should be 1.3 apparently, but you can also fine tune it even more, but with 0.1 millimeters it should do the trick quite nicely. So with corner style you go to rounded, end cap style you go to rounded, position in front, and then make sure you select print lines of selected shapes. If you won't check print lines of selected shapes, you just would print the registration marks, not the crisscross area here, just the registration marks, which are that piece there, and that square. You just would print those. And then you just hit print it on your printer, put the paper as shown with the registration marks on the right side of the cutting mat, load it in, just make sure it's aligned, check your owner's manual for that one, read the fucking manual, how I like to call it, and then just hit start. I just don't have it connected right now because this is on the other end of my room. But anyway, when you load it in your cutting mat, you just hit start. It should read in those registration marks and start cutting. If it doesn't cut immediately, like it can't register the registration marks, turn your cutting machine or turn the Cameo 3 around that the front face is pointing to a window, for example. Sometimes they need a bit more light for some reason, but that one completely depends. With mine, it actually does the trick with like turning on the lights if it doesn't register it immediately, but it should do the trick quite nicely. And for that page, I think it will take like 7 or 8 minutes or something like that, and then it is cut. You don't need to do any manual labor anymore. The only thing you need to obviously do is gluing it together like you would normally do, and to basically throw away the rest of the paper, but that's just something you would normally do as well. But anyway, that's the steps involved with going from, or with actually cutting Pepakura with your Silhouette Cameo 3 cutting machine. And also for the price point, it isn't that expensive. It did cost me, with the cutting mat, the automatic blade which is included, it cost me like under 300 euros. It was not that expensive, to be honest. It is quite a bit investment if you think about it, but it saves you so much time, especially if you do really large projects like building a complete armor set or something like that. You're really happy with letting a machine cut that stuff for you. And also you can use it for pretty much anything else as well, like cutting decals or something like that. So anyway, that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions left, or if I left something out, ask in the comments. I will gladly answer your questions. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time.